Today, we are taking on a true behemoth. We're talking about Amazon, a company that started its life as, well, a purely online bookstore. And it somehow spiraled out into a $1.6 trillion octopus that now touches nearly every aspect of global commerce.
It is genuinely staggering. And what our sources show is that this story, the story of global domination, it doesn't begin with some grand corporate plan. It begins in 1994 with a pretty dramatic, high-stakes career change. Jeff Bezos was a successful investment banker, vice president at D. Shaw, high salary, cushy job, and he decides to quit everything.
Just leaves it all behind. Why?
Because he saw the early promise of the internet and thought, I need to sell books online.
And the path to the name we all know today, Amazon, was definitely not a straight line. The initial name he chose was Cadabra.
Cadabra, yeah, as in the first half of Abracadabra.
Right.
And this choice caused immediate and, pretty costly confusion. Apparently, when Bezos or his team spoke to lawyers or tried to market the name, people kept hearing cadaver, which is not the brand identity you want for an enthusiastic internet startup. They needed a change, and fast.
Right. It's a fantastic branding failure story. He registered a bunch of other domains too. I love this little historical nugget from the source material. He briefly considered Relentless.
Oh, I've heard this.
If you type that in today, relentless.com, it still redirects you straight to Amazon. But my personal favorite failed option was Bookmall.
Bookmall, that is very 90s. But the one he settled on, Amazon, was deeply strategic. It really speaks to the ambition from day one. He chose it because the Amazon River and rainforest are the largest in the world. He wanted his company to embody that scope, aiming not just to be a bookstore, but to be the single largest bookstore in the world.
Well, 25 years later, I'd say that ambition has been spectacularly realized, and then some. Amazon is now the largest online store for virtually everything, but it also spans sectors that seem, entirely unrelated. Prime Video, Kindle, Audible, Amazon Fresh, and critically, Amazon Web Services, which is the undeniable #1 in its field. So our mission for this deep dive is to unpack the underlying business model that fueled this astronomical growth.
Okay, let's unpack this and maybe start with the core product concept back in 1995.
The idea itself was incredibly simple, but truly revolutionary for its time. Allow people to buy books online through a simple website, instead of making them travel to a physical store. The crucial difference was the convenience factor.
Right, totally. Instead of a physical store holding, maybe 50,000 titles?
If you're lucky.
Amazon could offer hundreds of thousands of books on a single website. That convenience and massive selection created instant traction. The website launched in 1995, and the growth was just exponential. By December 1996, they had already amassed 180,000 customers. By 97, revenue hit $148 million.
And that rapid success led to a pivotal strategic decision. Going public in 1997. This move, though, was less about immediate returns for shareholders and entirely about accessing massive funds, for one thing.
Growth.
Just pure growth. That injection of capital allowed them to accelerate, pushing their revenue to $600 million just 1 year later, by 1998.
And what's fascinating here is that the source materials identify two main reasons for this early success. One was that immediate, unparalleled customer convenience, because they had almost no competitors. And two, the flywheel effect.
The flywheel effect. I love this concept because it perfectly describes self-sustaining growth. For listeners who might not be familiar, it's basically a massive wheel that requires a huge initial effort to get it turning. But once it gains momentum, it just maintains that energy and continues to spin faster and faster on its own. How exactly did Amazon turn its book-selling business into a spinning wheel?
It's a beautiful, and I'd say brutal, self-reinforcing loop. It all starts with the customer. Amazon offered books at low prices and provided millions of options, which created a positive customer experience. Happy customers naturally drew more customers to the website, expanding their base.
Okay, so more happy customers.
That massive, growing customer base then became irresistible to third-party sellers who wanted to list their books. More sellers meant more book options for the customers, which reinforced that positive experience and pushed the cycle again.
The genius, though, wasn't just in the customer attraction part of the loop. It was in the financial input, wasn't it? The radical decision to continuously reinvest all the momentum.
Precisely. This is the crucial component that traditional retailers could never replicate. The profits Amazon earned were not immediately taken out for shareholder dividends or bonuses. They were immediately plowed back into improving the website, enhancing customer experience, and critically, building infrastructure to keep costs low.
And that infrastructure investment was highly controversial at the time. I mean, they were building these massive fulfillment centers before they actually needed them. It must have looked incredibly wasteful on the balance sheets.
It looked absolutely insane to Wall Street. They were spending capital on physical assets, warehouses, logistics, automation that immediately depressed their profitability. Analysts called it reckless, but Bezos saw it as fuel for the flywheel. By building their infrastructure ahead of demand, they secured the ability to deliver faster and cheaper than any future competitors. It's a game of scale, subsidized by a constant influx of revenue directed away from any immediate profit.
So that successful flywheel strategy, initially for books, was then strategically expanded. By 1998, they moved into computer games and music. The sources call the resulting success unprecedented. This rapid diversification led to Jeff Bezos being named Time Magazine's Person of the Year in 1999.
And what's fascinating is that they then started to double down on innovation specifically to lock in that customer experience and protect their momentum.
And one of the most famous examples of this is the one-click button, which they patented in September 1999.
That button. It seems like standard internet plumbing now, but it was truly brilliant. It seems so simple, you just skip the tedious cart process and buy immediately. But the sources highlight two distinct strategic advantages. One is obvious, the other is, well, strategically profound.
Okay, let's start with the obvious one.
The obvious benefit was a massive immediate increase in sales. It dramatically improved customer convenience, but more importantly, it exploited consumer psychology. When you have to click multiple times to buy something, it gives you that crucial moment of doubt, right, where you might reconsider the purchase. The one-click button removes that time for rational thought entirely.
That is incredibly effective. But the true genius, as you mentioned, was the data collection hidden within the function.
Exactly. To use that convenience, you had to consent to save all your personal info name, payment method, address with Amazon. Amazon tracked everything you bought with that button and then used that immense pool of purchase data to send highly targeted suggestions and personalized ads. They perfected the internal mechanism that says, if this person bought this, they are X% likely to also want Y. That anticipatory system just boosted sales even more.
And the competitive angle here is huge, right? The fact that they held the patent gave them a monopoly on that convenience for years.
A huge one. Barnes & Noble tried to incorporate a similar button, but lost the lawsuit because Amazon held the legal rights. It gave them a massive advantage until the patent finally expired in 2017. They protected their lead not just through speed, but through legal lock-in.
So once they had locked in the customer experience with one click and protected their lead, what was the next ceiling they had to break through? It had to be the marketplace concept, because Bezos didn't just want to sell some things.
He wanted to sell everything. That's the pivot. The marketplace allowed any third-party vendor to sell anything, from toys to tools, with Amazon simply taking a cut. This shift represents a fundamental transformation in their business model, moving from what we call 1P to 3P.
Could you break down that distinction for us? Why was letting go of inventory such a game changer?
Think of it this way. The 1P, or first-party model, is traditional retail. Amazon buys the product, say, a massive table and 40 chairs, stores it in its expensive warehouses, deals with the risk of it not selling. This means high overhead and consequently very low profit margins.
So the profit is small and the physical headache is enormous.
Precisely. Now, the 3P, or third party, is the marketplace model. Amazon acts purely as the platform, the landlord. The third party makes, sells, and stores the goods. Amazon avoids all the storage headaches. They don't have to find space for tables and chairs. And they simply earn a high-margin revenue cut for providing the digital storefront.
They traded physical risk and overhead for pure digital leverage. That's a huge strategic insight.
And the results are just undeniable. By 2018, this shift was a massive success, with 58% of all items sold on Amazon falling under that high-margin 3P model.
But supporting all those third-party vendors selling everything under the sun must have created a colossal internal problem, which ironically became their most profitable solution.
It's the classic Amazon paradox. Rapid growth created a critical shortage of data storage capacity for the entire operation. This was a massive internal cost. Now, most companies would simply rent server space from an established provider.
Sure, that would have been the cheaper, less risky move initially, wouldn't it? Why take on the massive risk of building your own global cloud infrastructure?
Because Bezos saw the future utility market. Instead of renting, he authorized a massive investment to build their own internal data storage and processing facility. It was designed to be scalable enough to handle not just their needs, but a world of future digital demand. This internal solution was the birth of Amazon Web Services, or AWS.
And it paid off exponentially. AWS faced very little competition at first, and is now the absolute power driver of the entire Amazon empire. Our sources indicate AWS contributes a massive 40% of the company's overall profitability, operating with an impressive 30% profit margin.
If you look at the bigger picture, AWS is essentially the engine funding everything else. It's wild to think that many companies we see as digital leaders, Netflix, Pinterest, Facebook, LinkedIn, they all rely on Amazon's infrastructure to run their businesses.
This brings us back to that crucial financial paradox we mentioned earlier. For Amazon's first decade, until around 2014, the company was earning next to no profit.
And the reason is clear. Every dollar of revenue was consistently and immediately reinvested back into the business, either into the physical flywheel, the warehouses, the logistics, or into foundational tech like AWS. They established a relationship with investors that said, we will not prioritize short-term profit, we will prioritize market share and scale.
So the substantial profitability we see today only truly kicked in after 2016, largely because of the dependable, high-margin income from AWS. That strategic patience is a massive differentiator.
And that differentiation is best understood through their success in capitalizing on the first-mover advantage, or FMA.
Let's look at the Kindle in 2007 as a great example of successful FMA. It tied back directly to their origin as a bookstore, which makes perfect strategic sense.
And the financial strategy with the Kindle device itself was brilliant. It was designed as a zero-profit device. They only sought to recover the cost of the hardware from the buyer. The entire purpose was to make money not on the gadget, but on the digital content the ebooks sold through Amazon's massive bookstore to Kindle users. This low-cost, content-focused approach allowed Kindle to quickly become the world's #1 ebook reader, locking in that distribution channel.
So Amazon was wildly successful where it secured and maintained that FMA. But what happens when they didn't get there first? What's the lesson in their late entry failures?
We see stark, expensive contrasts. The Fire Phone, launched in 2014, is a classic example. By that point, the smartphone market was utterly saturated. Apple launched the iPhone back in 2007. Amazon was simply too late and couldn't compete with the entrenched players. The Fire Phone was a catastrophic failure.
And that same lesson plays out in global markets too, specifically in a place like India.
Absolutely. The local competitor, Flipkart, secured the FMA by launching in 2007. When Amazon India launched in 2013, they had to compete against an already entrenched player. Today, while they have an effective duopoly with about 30% market share each, the data from FY 2020 shows Flipkart still has more than 3 times the users and triple the revenue of Amazon India.
That data point really underscores the immense cost of losing the first mover advantage, even for a company like Amazon. However, it also shows their enduring strategy. They are willing to spend massive amounts of money, sacrificing profit to gain market share and build that crucial flywheel.
They used their immense capital, largely funded by AWS, to play a decades-long game.
So if we quickly summarize Amazon's growth, the keys were, first, implementing that self-reinforcing, capital-intensive flywheel. Second, using data and convenience like the one-click patent to lock in customers. Third, strategically shifting to the high-margin 3P marketplace. And finally, leveraging an internal necessity to create the ultimate profit engine, AWS, which could fund all their future ambitions.
And the binding financial strategy is that willingness to operate at near zero profit for years, sacrificing short-term gains to build massive market dominance. They essentially proved to the world they could withstand years without focusing on the bottom line, which is a luxury traditional competitors could never afford.
That willingness to outspend everyone fundamentally changes the rules of competition.
It does. Even as a $1.6 trillion company, they continue to spend heavily to secure market share globally. They're investing billions in their logistics network to compete directly with giants like UPS and FedEx, and continuing to sink money into markets like India, where they are still chasing the leader. This brings us to the final, provocative thought. What happens when a company that has fundamentally changed the rules of engagement by proving it can withstand years without profit finally decides to stop investing for growth and focuses purely on maximizing that bottom line? That accumulated deferred power is the real question hanging over the global market.